What's up, guys? So in this video I wanted to talk about the trade-off between security and functionality when it comes to applications, mostly from an application standpoint. So this is how a lot of vulnerabilities get introduced into an application. Like I mentioned before, is that they add new functionality and that can introduce additional vulnerabilities. Like I was mentioning in a previous video, you could introduce a file upload functionality, but the problem with that is it'll bring along all the file upload vulnerabilities into the mix as well. And this is like sort of a trade-off that you're presented with here in the IT world, in the development space, is that everyone wants the latest and greatest functionality in order to, have the most features, have the most bells and whistles. But one thing that you have to consider is, the vulnerabilities that's going to introduce into the environment. Now, it's kind of like, how much are you willing to live with, I guess? If you think about today, everything has gone to the cloud pretty much, and that's something I'll touch on in a later video, and how everything is just moving to the cloud nowadays. But that's just one example of, everyone loves to have that ability to spin up your own servers, get as much processing power as you need at the touch of a button, without having to actually have physical servers or have a server room. But the downside of that is you're outsourcing the vulnerability. Well, not really vulnerabilities, but you're outsourcing pretty much everything to a third party. Now, that sort of goes hand in hand with anytime you want to add different functionality. Like, for example, file upload was one that I gave, but another thing could just be, you want to introduce some like commenting ability, maybe a forum onto your web page, where before you didn't have that functionality. That's something that if you want to add that, then that can bring along maybe some cross-site scripting, like stored cross-site scripting vulnerabilities, or pretty much anything that it has to do with input validation, right? Because now they're entering in text on the page and it's being stored on the page and retrieved later. Maybe you want to add functionality for the users to create their own accounts. Now their usernames are stored in the database, so you have to deal with all the potential vulnerabilities that go along with database, like SQL injection and stuff like that potentially. So now for your application, it might be necessary. You have to have a database, you have to have a way of storing this information to retrieve it later. And that is a case where you will be willing to accept that trade-off, and be willing to accept that, not necessarily that it's vulnerable, but that it could potentially be, and in the future it could potentially be, and that's something you're going to have to maintain. You're going to have to upkeep that and make sure that it's patched, and make sure that there's no new vulnerabilities out for it. So that's just something to consider. We'll keep this video kind of short and sweet, to the point, but that's pretty much all that I want to say about the trade-off between security and functionality. So if you found this video of value, be sure to subscribe for more to come, and I will see you guys in the next one.